morning, everyone. We will begin now. May we please request everyone to stand for the Philippine National Anthem, followed by the invocation. You may take your seats. Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 21st Jaime V. Ongpin Memorial Lecture on Public Service in Business and Government. My name is Maita Chan Gonzaga. I am the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs of the Ateneo Law School, and I will be your moderator this morning. Before we begin, may I briefly introduce first the following speakers for today's lecture. We have Mr. Raul Q. Montemayor, Karene Sevilla, Mr. Edgardo T. Valenzuela, and Mr. Ernesto Ordonez. As the past two lectures had to be held online due to the pandemic, may I just say it's a great pleasure on my part to actually welcome everyone on site to Ateneo Professional Schools here in Rockwell. We would also like at this juncture to acknowledge the presence of members of the Ateneo de Manila University, led by University President Father Bobby Yap of the Society of Jesus, Dean Randy Guanya and Dr. Ed Valenzuela, as well as Dean Joey Hotilania of the Law School. We would also like to greet the online audience via the live stream on the Ateneo YouTube channel. And so, without further ado, to open this year's lecture, may we call on the President of the Ateneo de Manila University, Father Roberto C. Yap, of the Society of Jesus, for his welcome remarks. Father Bobby?
Good morning. I am honored to welcome you, those here on site at Ateneo Rockwell, and those who are joining us online via the live stream. I am very pleased to honor to welcome you to the 21st Jaime V. Ongpin Annual Memorial Lecture on Public Service in Business and Government. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here to listen to our distinguished speaker, Mr. Raul Montemayor, National Business Manager and Program Officer of the Federation of Free Farmers Cooperatives Incorporated. I am very happy that we finally meet face-to-face after 2 years of conducting the JVO lectures virtually. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Maribel Ongpin for allowing us to keep the spirit of her husband alive to this annual memorial lecture. And I think it is apt that we convene today at Veritas Hall. Veritas was the name of the independent news weekly that Mr. Ongpin supported and founded. Food security continues to be a challenge in the Philippines. The COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing lockdowns led to disruptions in the food supply chain and an economic slowdown. In the Global Food Security Index for the second quarter of 2022, the Philippines placed 146 out of 171 countries in terms of food security. The index released by the consultancy agency Deep Knowledge Analytics was created from 40 food security indicators divided into these elements: food accessibility, crisis level, food system, and economic resilience. Scoring an overall index of 5.05 out of 10, the Philippines ranked lowest among Southeast Asian nations. These, among others, serve as the backdrop to this year's lecture. Given the experience of our esteemed speaker, I am confident we will draw from his wellspring of knowledge, insights, and wisdom. We look forward to an insightful morning and hope it will open a productive and fruitful dialogue among us as educators, formators, leaders, and Filipinos. Once again, thank you for joining us for the 21st Jaime V. Ongpin Annual Memorial Lecture on Public Service in Business and Government. Maraming salamat. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, Father Bobby. The Jaime V. Ongpin Memorial Lecture Series is a program of the Jaime V. Ongpin Center for Business and Government of the Ateneo School of Government that was created and rolled out 21 years ago. It was envisioned to elevate the appreciation of the Filipino people of current issues that have a national impact. Inspired by the late Mr. Ongpin's relentless commitment to freedom and democracy, the lecture series attempts to enlighten business and government leaders and the citizenry through the discussion of relevant topics. To introduce our speaker for this year's lecture, may I now call on the Dean of the Ateneo School of Government, Dr. Philip Arnold P. Plante.
introduce our guest speaker this morning, Mr. Raul Montemayor, who will be speaking on the topic Farmer Security is Key to Food Security, a topic very much relevant to the times. Raul Montemayor has been the National Manager of the Federation of Free Farmer Cooperatives, or FFFC, of the Philippines since 1978. He concurrently acts as the National Manager of the Federation of Free Farmers, or FFF, a national union of small farmers, which serves as the mother organization of FFFC, which was founded in 1953 and was instrumental in the passage of several pieces of agrarian reform legislation in the past several decades. The FFF and FFFC constitute the largest and long-lasting peasant organizations in the Philippines. Mr. Montemayor has acted as representative for small farmers in various local fora, particularly public-private sector dialogue platforms under the Department of Agriculture and the National Food Authority, and also on issues like international trade, rural development, agricultural cooperatives, climate change, and food security. He also was a private sector advisor to the Philippine government in agricultural trade negotiations, both in the World Trade Organization and at the regional, including the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and at various bilateral levels. Mr. Montemayor was also Vice President of the International Federation of Agricultural Producers, a global network of farmer organizations with over 600 million members in 120 organizations and 79 countries, and a board member of the International Food and Agricultural Trade Policy Council, an international non-profit organization dedicated to developing and advocating policies that support an efficient and open global food and agricultural system, which was founded in 1987. He has also represented small producers in various bodies of the region and was a board member of the Global Horticulture Initiative, an international organization based in Tanzania promoting public-private partnerships in innovation in agricultural cultivation. He graduated from the Ateneo de Manila University in 1977 with a bachelor's degree in management engineering. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Raul Montemayor.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. And thank you very much for this distinct honor to be your keynote speaker today for this year's Jaime V. Ongpin Memorial Lecture on Public Service in Business and Government. Our discussion today on food security comes at a very opportune time, and it is only proper that we give the people who produce the food, meaning our own farmers, the opportunity to share their views on this vital issue. The United Nations has defined food security as a situation that exists when all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. There are therefore three key aspects of food security, four key aspects: availability, affordability, safety and quality, and sustainability. How do we fare as a country in terms of food security? Unfortunately, not very well. According to the London-based economist group, we rank 73rd worldwide among 113 countries in 2020. At that time, among ASEAN countries, we were third to the last compared to Myanmar, lower than Myanmar, and outranking only Cambodia and Laos. Now I hear from Father that after 2 years, we are now last among the ASEAN countries in terms of food security, using the same parameters. So we are really deteriorating. Our capacity to produce food for our growing population has been deteriorating over the years, despite our tropical climate and vast natural endowments. More and more, we have become dependent on other countries to fill in the gap. Now comes the war in Ukraine, coupled with the lingering effects of the COVID pandemic and climate change, which has disrupted the supply and prices of many food commodities that we import. We are clearly in a very vulnerable and insecure food situation. We need to find solutions fast, not only for the crisis at hand, but more importantly, to prepare for even worse predicaments in the future. Availability, which is the first aspect of food security, is often equated with producing as much food as we can. Government programs typically focus on boosting output, for which farmers are given incentives such as free irrigation, subsidized credit, seed subsidies, and lately even ayuda. Unfortunately, this production-oriented approach does not seem to be working. Why? Because it is directed towards the commodity and not the farmer who is producing the commodity. In 2021, our palay output reached a historical high of almost 20 million tons. But in that same year, the incomes of rice farmers declined by an estimated 22 billion pesos compared to 2017. This was due to a drop in farm gate prices, mainly brought about by over-importation. Many farmers probably ended up deeper in debt, even as the banks lent less than 1% of their loanable funds to small farmers, opting to pay penalties instead of complying with the 10% minimum mandated by the Agri-Agra law. The Philippine Statistics Authority reported that overall poverty, and most likely also rural poverty, increased in 2021 compared to 2018. So despite the fact that we harvested more palay, our farmers ended up in a worse situation. In other words, maraming ani pero walang kita. Beyond raising production, we should also take a look at the food that we lose due to the lack of drying, storage, and other post-harvest facilities. And we have to upgrade our distribution and logistics system so that the products from the farm reach consumers at the right place and time and are not left to rot in fields due to the lack of dryers and interim storage facilities. The second aspect of food security is affordability, and it is certainly a critical component of food security. Having a lot of food available is meaningless if consumers cannot afford to buy what they need. Too often, however, we place the burden of lowering food prices on the backs of the farmers by imposing price controls on their products and flooding markets with cheap imports to control inflation. But affordability is just the flip side of one's capacity to buy. For somebody with a lot of money, it does not really matter if the price of rice doubles or triples. But for one with limited means, even a 1 peso increase in the price of rice is unaffordable. It is not the fault of farmers that many consumers are poor and have limited money to buy food. Most farmers are also very poor, and many of the poor that we see here around us in the cities are themselves migrants who fled the rural areas because they could not make ends meet through farming. So if we merely focus on keeping food prices low, we remove the incentives for farmers to continue farming, and we risk exacerbating many of the urban problems that we are already facing. There is, of course, the option, as espoused by many of our economic managers, to just import our food requirements if our farmers cannot supply them at a cheaper price. According to them, trade liberalization will be the best guarantee for food security especially because we are visited by a lot of typhoons and calamities. They have also argued that opening up our markets is actually a no-brainer because the benefits and interests of millions of poor consumers should necessarily outweigh any losses that farmers would incur. In addition, competition with and not protection from imports will force our farmers to adapt and innovate. In an ideal world and within the sanitized confines of computerized econometric models, these theories will probably work. But reality is very different. Cheaper imports do not guarantee that prices for consumers will go down. In 2019, Congress passed the Rice Tariffication Law or the RTL, which took out controls on rice imports and deregulated our rice market. In the ensuing 3 years, cheap imports flooded the country and severely depressed farm gate prices for palay. But retail prices for consumers barely moved when compared to normal pre-RTL periods. Our analysis, for example, shows that while farmers' average incomes dropped by 4,650 pesos per hectare during each 6-month crop cycle, consumers save only a measly 26 pesos during the same 6-month period. In effect, the benefits from liberalization were captured by market intermediaries with practically no gains for consumers and at a huge cost to millions of rice farmers. Even if imports are able to actually reduce food prices for consumers, it is foolhardy to rely too much on foreign countries to supply our essential food requirements. These countries will naturally prioritize their own citizens or interests before attending to our needs. Recently, India imposed a 20% tax on its rice exports in order to preserve its own stocks following erratic rainfall patterns. Thailand and Vietnam, from where we source 85% of our rice imports, are reportedly planning to collude in fixing their prices of the rice exports instead of competing against each other. Wars, calamities, and other external events over which we have little control can easily inhibit our access to foreign goods or make them too expensive to buy. This does not mean, of course, that we should ban imports or that we should not aspire for 100% self-sufficiency for food. We should also find ways to lower the cost of food production of our farmers and improve their productivity so that they can supply food at lower cost. Having said that, we must be careful not to flood our markets with cheap imports just to keep food prices low. The more we allow imports to displace local production, the less incentive for our farmers to continue producing and becoming more efficient, and the more dependent we become on foreign suppliers for our basic food requirements. When the Philippines joined the World Trade Organization in 1995, our agricultural imports were basically equal to our exports. Since then, and after entering many other free trade agreements, our agricultural trade deficit has ballooned to as much as $9 billion in 1 year. We have lost nearly 1 million jobs in agriculture during the same period. We now import not only rice, corn, fish, and meats, but also mongo, peanuts, black pepper, sugar, and even salt. Food safety and nutrition is the third important aspect of food security. It is only right that farmers are prohibited from using harmful pesticides and encouraged to adopt hygienic methods of production. But but they should be allowed to recover costs in complying with food safety standards. Markets must reward them with better prices for producing more nutritious food. A purely punitive approach to enforcing food security, food safety, and nutrition will only backfire. This also holds true when we address the fourth and perhaps most challenging component of food security, which is sustainability and resiliency. It is actually in the interest of farmers to protect and nurture the environment from which they derive their livelihood. But if we push them into a corner, there will always be the danger that they will end up abusing the land, water, and other natural resources simply to survive. They also need to save themselves before they can help save the planet. We must equip farmers with practical skills and affordable technologies that will enable them to farm profitably and in a sustainable manner. And we must provide them with market rewards and public support for adopting practices that will ensure the long-term food security of our society. When our organization was promoting organic farming, we noticed that farmers were most interested in techniques for composting and fermentation using farm waste, not because these were good for the environment, but because it would help them cut the costs on fertilizer and pesticides. As we try to make food more affordable and available, and ensure their safety and nutrition, and even as we set our eyes on our long-term capacity to feed ourselves, we must not forget to take care of the number one resource we have and we need, our own farmers. Unfortunately, our farmers are an aging, if not a dying breed. They do not see much hope in farming, nor do their children, whose dreams are to land jobs in the cities or work abroad, so that they will not have to farm like their parents. If they all leave their farms, where will they go? And where will we get the food that we need? In 2015, the government of India renamed its counterpart to our Department of Agriculture as their Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was quoted as saying that rural and agricultural development can only be complete when the welfare of the farmer is also assured. He could have added that his country's social, political, economic, and ultimately national security and progress could not be achieved for as long as millions of small farmers remain poor and insecure. Unlike manna from heaven, food security is not free. We need to work for it and be willing and ready to pay the price so that the food will always be available, affordable, safe, and nutritious for everyone. A big part of that bill is taking care of our farmers so that they can continue feeding us. Food security is the key. Farmer security is the key to food security. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montemayor, for that very incisive lecture. I personally found it very disturbing, but I think that perhaps that's one of the goals of the Jaime V. Ongpin Memorial Lecture, to disturb us who listen and those who may perhaps be in a position to act. Um, all right, before we proceed to hear from our distinguished panel of reactors, we would like to invite the members of the audience to submit any questions and comments on the chat facility if you're online. The chat facility of the pertinent platform that you are using to access this lecture program, whether it be Facebook or YouTube. Um, when doing so, please indicate your name and any designation you may have in the institution or group you belong to. Now, for those of our on-site guests, kindly approach the microphones later during the open forum. We will then ask Mr. Montemayor and our panelists, or the panelists to whom the question or comment is directed to respond to as many of them, consolidated and summarized by our program staff as the remainder of the time can accommodate. At this point, may I call on Karine Sevilla, the legal officer and advocacy leader of the Pambansang Kilusan ng mga samahang magsasaka, or pakisama, to give us his reaction.
Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat, sa mga taga rito sa Ateneo at sa mga sa inyo pong lahat. Magandang umaga. Mainam po yung binahagi. Paumanhin po ninyo, ako po hindi mahusay magsalita ng English at Tagalog po ang aking wika. Mainam po yung binahagi ni Sir Montemayor at ito po yung nakikita natin na kalagayan ngayon pag pinag-uusapan yung food security at saka yung farmer security. Tila nakaligtaan po niya po banggitin doon yung agrarian reform. Ano po? Kasi po ang batayan ng pagkain at kasiguruhan namin mga magsasaka ay meron po kaming lupa. Sa ngayon po meron pa po tayong natitirang batay po sa target na agrarian reform, meron pa po tayong humigit kumulang 500,000 hektare ng lupa na pansakahan na hindi pa naipamamahagi sa ilalim ng agrarian reform. At ito po ay hindi pa itinutuloy ng pamahalaan at hindi natin alam kung kailan itutuloy ang agrarian reform. Binabanggit ko po ito sapagkat nung mga nakaraang panahon ay meron po tayong mga 2.3 million hectares ng palayan na ngayon mga 3 point yata yan. Sorry. Pagkatapos bumaba na po ito ngayon ng 2 point something. At 1.5 million hectares po rito ay may irigasyon. Yung iba po niyan wala pong irigasyon. At yun po yung tinitingnan natin na problema. Marahil kaya nagkukulang yung pagkain natin. At marami pa rin mga magsasaka ang walang lupa. Pangalawa pong binabaka namin ngayon, ito yung sinasabi ni Sir Montemayor na malaking impact sa amin yung rice tarification law, yung RTL. Ang dahilan, yung 10 bilyon na nakukuha doon, agad na hinati-hati ito ng RCEP doon sa 50% ito sa PhilMec, merong napunta sa PhilRice para sa binhi. Pero yung pong lugi ng mga magsasaka hindi nababawi. Ano po? Kahit may suporta silang kaming serbisyo galing po sa RCEP, meron pong mga problema ron sa distribution ng tulong sa mga magsasaka. Halimbawa, bibigyan ka ng traktora kung ikaw ay 50 hektaryang palayan. Sa ilalim po ng agrarian reform, 5 hectares lang po yung sa may-ari at 3 hektarya doon sa mga magsasaka. At pagtitingnan po natin ngayon, yung pag-aari ng mga magsasaka, mga kalahating hektarya hanggang 1 hektarya lang po yung kanilang sinasaka. So, ang kailangan po namin, mag-organisa pa kami sa aming hanay para makakuha kami ng mga traktora mula sa pamahalaan. Kung magkagayon, kukunti na bibinipisyuhan noong serbisyo mula doon sa rice tarification law, mula sa 10 billion na alokasyon para itulong sa mga magsasaka, safety nets natin para makapag-produce ng pagkain itong mga magsasaka at hindi malugi sa sinasaka. Pangalawang punto rito, mababa talaga yung presyo ng palay. Dahil dun sa importasyon, Ang pangako ng batas natin na yan, pababain sana yung presyo ng bigas sa pamilihan sa palengke. Hanggang 28 pesos kada kilo. Pero pag tiningnan natin ngayon, parang magtatatlong taon na yata yung rice tarification law. Ang presyo sa pamilihan ngayon, 41, 42 yung presyo ng bigas. Ibig sabihin, hindi natin abot yung target. At panganib po ito sa atin dahil sa itong hambalo sa atin ng kalamidad. Kahit kami mga magsasaka ay patuloy na nagsasaka, pinagyayaman namin yung lupa. Pag yung bagyo ngayon, mas malakas ang tama Pag kahit magsaka ka ng 3 buwan, halimbawa nakayuko na yung palay mo at malapit ng anihin. Pag tinamaan niya ng bagyo, wipe out yan. Talo tayo doon. Hindi lang yun ang tinatamaan. Kasi pag pinag-usapan natin pagkain, meron tayong mais, meron tayong adlay, meron tayong mga root crops. Pag binagyo, root crops lang po ang natitira, hindi naman tayo kumakain ng mga root crops kadalasan. Rice talaga tayo. Kaya itong bagay nito mahalagang naiintindihan din natin na mahalagang aksyonan ito. At pagkatapos ng bagyo, walang konkretong ginagawa paano makaka-recover yung mga magsasaka. At meron nga tayong crop insurance. Alam naman natin, may crop insurance tayo. Pero ang hirap nilang hanapin yung ahensya ng crop insurance sa mga barangay at sa bayan. Yun yung problema namin. Kaya tingnan natin, talagang medyo papahirap tayo. Kung mamamahal ang tinapay ngayon, epekto yan nung tingin ko yung giyera sa Ukraine. Kasi around 30% ng supply ng trigo galing sa kanila, wala, ginira sila ngayon. Kaya ayun naman yung ating ginagamit sa tinapay at saka mga pasta. So, talagang tataas yan. At yung climate change, malaking bagay po sa agrikultura. Kahit sa mga mangingisda, kapag patag-init, yung mga corals sa dagat, kapag nahihibsa, natutuyo yun namamatay yun. Kami sa bukid, kapag binagyo kami, siyempre talo. Pag tag-init din, wala rin kaming inaani. Yung palay po kasi meron siyang level na tolerance sa init. Kapag lumampas na ron, kahit mataba ang palay mo, hindi na po siya mag-aani. Kahit bugbugin mo pa siya ng pataba. Dalawang pataba natin ginagamit, isang organic, sabi nga ni Raul, organic at saka meron tayong synthetic. Yung synthetic fertilizer, tingin namin yun ang mas mataas na nagpapainit ng mundo dahil dun sa green gas emission na ini-emit dito. Kaya kami po sa pakisama, meron kami tinatawag na IDOPS, Integrated Diversified Organic Farming System. Sa tingin namin, yun po yung makakapag-sustain ng pagkain namin sa kanayunan. Dahil kahit bumagyo, kung diversified naman yan, kapag kunyari bumagyo, bagsak ang mga saging, may matitira kaming root crops. At kapag tag-ulan, binahayan, may mga fruit trees naman kami mag-i-exist na pwede namin pakinabangan. Pero dito sa kalunsuran, problema yon. Kasi halimbawa kung binaha yung Central Luzon, problema natin yon. Halimbawa Mindoro, kasi yung Mindoro po siyang food basket ng Metro Manila sa ngayon. Yung mga yan, kapag yan nasa lanta ng bagyo, talagang makakaranas po tayo ng kagutuman. Yun yung takot kasi sa ngayon, dahil sa pagkalugi ng mga magsasaka, kahit nga yung mga kabataan, ayaw nilang magsaka. Dahil yung kinikita ron sa kabukiran, kung ihahambing sa kita sa kalunsuran, sa pagtatrabaho, ay hindi patas. Kunyari kung sa call center, mga 15,000 yata ngayon, kada buwan. Pero sa sakahan po, hindi kami kumikita ng ganun. Kaya mahalagang tingnan ito na paano mapapataas yung kita ng mga magsasaka at maingganyo yung ating mga kabataan na susunod na henerasyon namin sa pagsasaka na magsaka. At yun po yung magtitiyak ng kasiguruhan sa pagkain sa mga darating na panahon. Ang average po namin ngayon, tanda na namin po siguro po yung mga 56, 57 na po ang mga magsasaka ngayon. Yung karaniwan na ron sa At karamihan dyan patanda na. Ibig sabihin yan, pag yan ang kukwentahan mo at lifespan ng mga magsasaka ay sabihin nating 68 yung lalaki, 70 sa kababaihan. Ibig sabihin malapit na pong manganib yung ating kasiguruhan sa pagkain. Hindi naman po natin dapat iaasa sa abroad ang ating pagkain kasi halimbawa yung China, binaha sila ngayon, siyempre hindi na sila magsusupply dito. Kahit yung India nga nalagyan na rin nila ng pag-control yung kanilang pag-i-export. ang Thailand at ang Cambodia na nag-i-export sa atin, binabaha po yan. Pag dumating itong patindi ng patindi na climate change, ang mangyayari niyan, hindi na sila mag-export sa Pilipinas at magkakaroon tayo ng taggutom. Kaya mahalaga aksyonan po natin itong bagay na ito at hindi naman natin makokontrol yung pag-init ng mundo na siyang nagpapalakas ng pagbaha at pagpatindi ng init. Malaking issue po sa amin talaga yung climate change. Bukod dun sa maraming binanggit ni Sir Raul, mahalaga pong tingnan natin at aralin natin ito. Paano gagawin natin sa adaptation at sa climate change? Paano tayo makasiguro ng pagkain sa Pilipinas? Kasi halimbawa, paparami yung conversion. Dahil sa yung local government sa ilalim po ng Republic Act 7160, meron silang kapangyarihan mag-convert ng mga agricultural land. At makikita mo rito, kahit sa Agrarian Reform Law, sabi ron, bawal mag-convert ng agricultural land. Non-negotiable yun. Pero pag nagbiyahe ka mula sa Central Luzon, patungong Kabikulan, yung lahat nating mga palayan na convert into non-agricultural uses. Ginagawang subdivision, ginagawang mga tayuan ng pabrika, at mukhang kinakailangan po natin na magpasa talaga ng National Land Use Act para dito. Kasi kung hindi papasa, hindi natin madidetermine saan yung agricultural land, saan yung ating mga economic zone, etc., saan yung minahan. Pag pinag-usapan natin yung minahan, ang sinisira po niyan ay yung ibabaw. At karahilan dyan nasa kagubatan. Pag in-scrap natin yun, wala na tayo ng bahay ng tubig. May epekto po yun dun sa ating mga sakahan. Kaya sa amin po, ang amin pong advocacy sa pakisama ay agrarian reform and rural development. Kasi pagka napaunlad natin yung kanayunan, tingin po natin ay may kasiguruhan yung mga magsasakang naandun at makapagsusupply po ng maayos ng dali ng pagkain sa mga taong bayan. Yun lang po at magandang umaga. Salamat.
Good morning. Sorry for that breach. Uh, anyway, I am really, I've seen the statement of Raul in advance, so I prepared a few points as reaction points. But anyway, I hope the open forum will provide us more opportunities also to interact. But anyway, on the outset, I would like to say that I agree with Raul that farmer security is the key to food security. In fact, looking at the studies, our farmers' average age is about 58 years old, according to the Scalabrini Migration Center. They published a report in 2020 because they were looking at the impact of agriculture and youth migration. Is it possible to keep the young people here by offering them more opportunities in agriculture? Unfortunately, the study said no, we can't keep the young people if it's only agriculture because of some of the reasons that both Raul and Karen has pointed out. Anyway, we also know what is the population like. World Bank reports that there are about 5.5 million poor farmers. Now we're looking at and about 4.6 million fishers, those who are primarily involved in coastal fishing and also doing farming on the side. So altogether, that population is about a little over 10 million people whom we can consider as poor. So, and that's worrying. That number is not constant, it's going up. Third point I'd like to make, that we have to remember that agriculture share in overall GDP, gross domestic product, at 2020 remains at 10.2%. And it's not really growing because if we look at the services correspondingly, it's over 61%. No? So ang layo ng agwat. No? Well, we have known, if we look back historically, sayang walang terno dito, but we can see problems that government administrations, DA, what they have done and not done. No? In next point I'd like to make is we can also look at this compared with our neighboring countries. No? In 2020, compared to our neighbors, if we want to look at the budgets, Indonesia spent 3.4% of their budget on agriculture. However, Vietnam even did better because they spent 6.5% of their budget on agriculture. I also looked at Thailand's figures, and they spent 3.6% of theirs, while for us, the Philippines, it was a measly 1.7% of our total budget. So you can see the priority or the focus that that is why are we suffering today. It's also because of how some of our policy and our planners and previous administrations have treated the role of agriculture. They've not given importance to it. These indicators from that budget shows to you why the other countries are more progressive, and we've also reached that what do you call that? That notoriety. We should say that we are the highest rice importer in the world. No? I think over 800 million tons, or even much more than that. Anyway, the next point is that well, we've been following the local budget. No? In the 2022, the budget was that was passed was 71 billion pesos, and in 2023, we've heard reports, we've seen that this will be increased by about 44% to 102 billion. However, most of these funds will still benefit the rice sector. And I think that's part of the problem. It's been too much of a commodity approach. And only, if you look at that 102 billion, only 2 billion is allocated for high value crops. Meaning most of it's really going to rice, a small portion is going to sugar, but then I think 60% is really going to the rice sector at least. Then meron pang irrigation, etc. So it's really a lopsided budget, if you like. There was a recent update to the economist rankings that Raul referred to in his statement, because 3 weeks ago, the Economist released their new rankings, and the Philippines has placed number 67 out of 113, which was a slight improvement that should be noted. But still, we are still in that range, no, which is called globally moderate food insecurity overall. On the issue of food loss and food waste, which was also referred to, there have not been new studies, no? But globally, FAO is saying that the United Nations is saying that 30 to 40% is really the general food loss and food waste. No? And food loss is really when from farm to until before it hits the market, the retail market. Then it becomes food waste once it goes to the household, to the shops, no, to the commercial, to the food establishments, etc. Then that's classified as food waste. The last study I could find from FNRI, which is dated, reports that rice waste is around, let me read the figure, 297,000 metric tons. This was reported about 10 years ago. But still, that's for the Philippines. No? That's the numbers they've given. I don't know if there's more recent studies. And in 2015, IRI, the International Rice Research Institute, said that up to 15% of Philippine post-harvest, no, of farm to up post-harvest until including logistics, distribution, was up to 15% of the harvest, the actual harvest. No? So that's what's actually being wasted. No? So that's why I agree with Raul that when he's saying that we really need more post-harvest facilities, and here I think private sector or even agricultural cooperatives and others can have a key role to play in this particular value chain activity. That's where the opportunity is. And we have seen exactly why the traders are the ones who have really benefited from this RTL law. The farmers didn't benefit, we can see that. Farm gate prices, consumers didn't benefit. But who sino yung gumana dito? No? It's really the traders and the importers. No? That's why there is still hoarding actually, whether they say there's none or what. But there is still hoarding because the traders know what they're doing. It's not to our benefit, only to theirs. A few more points, then I'll be good. No? At this point, I'd like to allow me to introduce a paradigm shift. Because now we should look at it in terms of food systems, no? Food systems development. As we can see, it gaining prominence in the development agenda. You might recall last year the United Nations had this UN Food System Summit in September 21, no? During the UN General Assembly, and it provides a broader framework, no? Because food security, which has been the dominant paradigm, has been with us since the 90s. No? I've actually worked for 3 World Food Summits in my professional job previously. So in that definition and the follow-up to that, and then the last one held in 2009. But we can see that it's not enough to be able to look at the bigger picture, let's say. No, so if we look at it now from a food systems summit, we can see that it goes beyond food security to particularly focus on value chain, the other parts of the value chain that are not really addressed. And also it looks at point of view of consumers and livelihoods, because it's not only question of production or post-production and logistics. We have to look at it also from the point of view of consumers. We have a say, no? We are able to link with farmers. No? There's so much CSA that can be done, where we can relate directly from buying directly from farmers groups, as organized neighborhoods, as village associations, or even in institutions, no? In schools. No? I used to pick up my bayong of gulay from the philosophy department of Ateneo in about 10 years ago when we came back, because that was the only pick-up point available in Loyola Heights. Now at least it has grown. Now they can at least bring your bag of bayong to your house, and so on and so forth. No? But now, of course, the pandemic exacerbated that and facilitated more direct contacts with farmers and producers. No? So community-supported agriculture, I think, is one way to go, and more groups are doing that. So that's included in a food systems view. And then we should also look at it from the point of view of livelihoods. No? So there are more opportunities that are opening up, and as we heard from both Raul and Karine, that if you want to keep the younger generation on farm, we have to find more opportunities. And we're saying it's not only in production; it can be in IT. Now a lot of work is needed. No? We need data, even big data for agriculture. That will not only help inform policymakers or planners, but it will also be able to be productive for the market. We know who's growing what where, and that's I think the way the future should go. No? Then we can have a more open space, no? Or more open data. Then we can, of course, the issue of nutrition and health is part of that bigger food systems approach. Also safety nets, advocacy and education, climate change and sustainability and resilience. On nutrition, what is really important is what is really important is we have to look at the diets because it's not enough na busog yung tao. Kailangan meron ding may sustansya yon. No? So it's not enough to eat rice or to eat Lucky Me noodles. They have to put in stuff there like an egg or more veggies, make that nutritious. One way also to support farmers, just 2 paragraphs and I'm good to go. One way we can support farmers is to look at agri-ecological techniques as well as agricultural production that is natural or biological to make it affordable and nature-friendly, such as bokashi composting or use of biochar, ipa, burnt ipa as fertilizer, organic herbicides and pesticides from kitchen waste, etc. One last point is on the issue of nutrition, as 30% of our children under 5 are reported to be stunted due to lack of access to nutritious food. More resources and safety nets are needed, similar to the 4 Ps for the more than 10 million small farmers and fishers, and more imagination by those in government and how to use the available resources to really benefit the rural poor. Thank you very much.
So let me just say thank you to Karina earlier and to Professor Valenzuela, our immediately preceding reactor. Just very quickly, Professor Valenzuela is with the Ateneo School of Government. He is also a member of the faculty of the Economics Department, School of Social Sciences of the Ateneo Loyola Schools. He's co-coordinator of the Ateneo Leadership and Social Entrepreneurship and president of the Overseas Filipino Society for the Promotion of Economic Security. Now, may we invite our last reactor, Mr. Ernesto M. Ordonez, who is the chair of the Alianza Agricultura, National Coordinator, Agri-Fisheries Alliance, and President, Management Association of the Philippines Agribusiness and Countryside Development Foundation.
Maraming salamat po. Father Yap, Dean Banya, Maribel Ongpin. I'd like to start with a sentence. The sentence is that we're in this rock because of governance. And I want to follow Jimmy Ongpin's example. He fought for it, he died for it. And after today, we want to carry that spirit with what we learned here today. I did want to get the speech of Mr. McCoy before he came. I didn't get it, but I was able to browse through it because my friend had there in the copy. So I'd like to give 2 reactions to that. First of all, full disclosure. The Montemeros are important to my life. As a matter of fact, I blame them for losing 13 million pesos. I blame them. Why? I had a warrant for arrest for subversion for 9 years. And Father Joe, one who allowed me to come back because they were going to torture me without me there. And basically, I gave money to them when I was abroad. And basically, when I came back, I told my daddy, Daddy, you know, food security is farmer security. Right? We won't have food if the farmers aren't happy. Now you are exploiting that. As a matter of fact, Daddy, you don't own the land. Who owns the land? Someone else. Who told you? Jerry Montemayor, the father. Let me tell you this. A long time ago, sumong malawans were hard to get. Only 3 did it. De La Costa, Rojas, and Montemayor. Now the children get it. Good heavens. The 2 kids are also summa cum laude, Raul and Leone. And these guys are leading the fight right now. I say that because when I told my daddy, God owns the land, my daddy then gave all the land away, 32 hectares. We're supposed to keep some, right? Give it all away at 1,200 pesos a hectare. That's why I can go anywhere, communists won't kill me, right? And what happened? If the farmers are not secure and don't have income, they will lose faith, they'll go abroad and leave the land, they'll have no food security. And when the farmers get the land, I like to say this, agrarian reform, they kill it, right? In fact, Like Christianity, it has never been tried. When it was tried, Shell Habitat wrote that when they give support services, the farmers' income go up, productivity. But you know, the government, that's why I'm blaming the government, but I'll tell you, I'll blame us too, right? I'll tell you why. Because if you don't give support services, then they're left with nothing, they get poorer, right? When agrarian reform is done properly, it's very good. So I'd like to say, Mr. Rene Cerilla, I support you, but we want it done properly, right? Okay. And finally, I'd like to say this now, regarding Mr. Montemayor's speech. Poverty has become worse in rural poverty. Just add it, okay? We're 31% rural poverty. Nationwide 20, 31% rural. It's double the next poorest country, right? Which is Vietnam and Thailand. Indonesia, 17, 17, and 31. It's terrible. The second one, I want to say is import, right? Okay. We import, we have nothing left here. You know why? Because of governance, right? You know this rice tariffication? You know those people, I accuse them of lying. I call them fake news, you know why? Because they say, we bring this thing down so the consumers get less, cheaper by 10%. They're being dishonest. Because the year they use, as Mr. Montemayor taught me, incidentally, this guy is better than me in many ways, right? Probably always. But he's the one who taught me. Okay? What happened is that they used the wrong year. If it's they used the year when they probably consciously did not get import surprise with rice, right? Okay, 10%. But before that and after that, it's only 1%. And 1% benefit for consumers, right? Okay. But for farmers, 24% down. And the reason I really am angry at them, in addition to being intellectually dishonest by giving the wrong year, they did not do what we in cement did. I used to be in cement, right? I headed cement in 6 countries. When safeguard measures, when tariffs this, we put condition of protection. We went there and told them, Mr. Montemayor and I, we submitted 2 formal positions. They never answered that. Because what they could have done, is they could have done what cement did, safeguard measures, and with safeguard measures, our farmers could still survive. They didn't do it. See? Now, I'm really very curious because Mr. Ongpin died fighting for the country. We're still alive. We must fight for the country because the fight is definitely not over. We're going to continue, right? So, in poverty, we're double our countries. Can you believe it? Double. And import is because of bad governance. They don't do the right thing, you know? Okay. So, given that, it is clear that we're getting poorer, we're importing without following the laws. We could have followed WTO rules, we didn't do it. And what we have to do to make the food secure is make our farmers secure. So, may I just ask my friend there, how many more minutes do I have left? How many? 6 minutes more? Well, that's a lot. Okay, I thought I had to wind up. Great. So I'm going to give you a song. No, not give you a song. I'm giving you a slide presentation. I prepared this, okay? 6 minutes. Okay, fine. All right. May I ask, Maestro, can you please flash this in? Water impairs farm and food security, okay? When I do this, I'll touch on some comments of my friend Karene. Incidentally, Karene is the Vice President of Alianza Agricultura, just as Montemayor is better than me in almost all things, especially internationally. This guy's better than me in terms of really knowing the farmers. It's the best organization, okay? And of course, Bansero, he was always brighter than me, but he's in government now, right? Okay, 5 imperatives. That gives me about 45 seconds each, so read fast, all right? 5 imperatives. Flash number 1. Okay. We don't have business information system. Unbated by the law, everybody has except us. And you know, they're kind of crazy. Because for the budget, they're giving us, guess what? 1.7%, right, of the budget for business. In other words, 10 million pesos. Are you kidding? I'm not kidding, huh? 10 million bucks. That's what's going on right now. You know, this is mandated. We don't know what we're doing. That's why we don't know how to plan, right? And therefore, we have to do this, gather information. I'm telling you, you people listening, you're not getting away with it because after this, we're going to have a challenge that we have to respond to. So we don't have information. You want the farmer to be secure, give him a decent plan. He has no decent plan. It's really stupid, actually, okay? Next slide, please. Less than 45 seconds, that's pretty good. Okay, commodity system. 74% of our land is 1 hectare, and they produce 1 product, okay? 60% of our budget is for rice, which is 20% value, okay? Livestock and poultry is 30%, they got 3% of the budget. High value crops, which Ed talked about, is our savior. They got 3%. They've totally gone crazy. You want to go Thailand, Taiwan. You know, when they have these things, so they're intercropping, right, or other things, we don't do anything, right? Okay, we got to use this, okay, and we need the value chain. Only last week I was fighting already the government because, you know, they said something. I don't agree with them. DBM is worse because they had some processing for corn. They took out all the processing. I said, don't you understand, DBM? You've never been to a farm, maybe, huh? When you have the corn and nuts, it's nothing. The way you compute it, the seeds equals out. It's ridiculous. When the seeds are rotten, you bring it down. I said, excuse me, didn't you study in Japan? I mean, how can you go there and do this? Didn't you study? I mean, for God's sake, you know, kulang ang compassion, you know, kulang compassion. You have to understand this, right? That's why I'm blaming governance, idiotic. I was in DTI, longer than DA. DTI is not so idiotic. All my managers there had AIM, MBM degrees. Not as good as Ateneo, but good enough, right? Okay? But these guys, they study crap growth. They don't understand ROI. They got to do this, right? So we need a value chain. Okay, next slide, please. You got to tell me when it's 2 minutes to go. Huh? Okay. Consolidation. Ang liit-liit. Wala kang economies of scale, right? You need economies of scale so that you can have production. Because if you don't have economies of scale, you will lose to the imports. You have economies of scale. And then we cannot export. We used to export. We're the only country in South Asia, the only country where our imports is much more than exports. And as Raul said, magkano? Ilang billion ngayon? 9 billion. Have you gone mad? 9 billion. And we were exporting, that's importing, and now. Okay, next slide, please. I'm passionate because I want all of you to be passionate after this talk. Okay. Now, planning, that's another freaking thing. Planning. With 70,000 extension workers, right? They went to the mayors, right? By law. What did the mayors do? They used them for driving and messenger. No, they're not doing their work. Because what they did, the law is also funny. I don't exactly respect our legislators too much, no? Because what they did is they cut out the fund, not the money. So these people went there, no guidance, they're doing other things. So last year, we succeeded in getting something done. We have a budget next year, but I'm just saying that there's no planning. And that's where it happens. And incidentally, who's responsible for agriculture? It's not DA anymore, it's the LGUs. But in fairness to them, they're doing it for messengers and all that because they were never guided, no? And we need that framework. Okay, last slide. Last slide. Okay, last slide. The monitoring. Sinabi na sa inyo, no, na ang laki ng binigay. To be frank with you, kasi Ed, I'm also Ateneo like you, but I did other things in UP, no? I mean, also good. And what is, you didn't include the other agencies. It is now, 40% increase, now 164 billion, right? Okay, now, alam mo, before, using the numbers, 100 million, 22 billion has disappeared. I've never seen this in my life. And again, I blame the government. Do you know why? Dean Randy Tuanyo, do you know why? I created a budget monitoring committee. I claim credit for that. I'm not mayabang, I'm just telling the truth. I created that. I'm inspired by Jaime Ongpin, right? I created that, and private sector would monitor how it's. They abolished it. Secretary Dar abolished it. And you know what happened? We couldn't monitor. 22 billion in unliquidated. Isn't that a disaster? Napoles stole 10 billion in 10 years. No, Napoles allegedly stole, para wala tayong libel. Napoles allegedly stole 10 billion 10 years. This freaking thing is 20 billion 1 year. And what do they do? Zero. Zero. So I went to the Senate already. I said, you know, you approve budgets. Don't you know they look at it? Why don't you see, you fight so much about your farm-to-market roads. Why don't you see how the money is being spent, right? It's in Cynthia Villa right now, right? And I'm going to blow the darn thing up right later if Mr. Tuanyo joins me, because I have more credibility with Tuanyo, because he's, you know, dean of School of Government. I'm just a farmer leader, right? No, talaga. Kung kasama ko si Tuanyo, di ba? Incidentally, he's also my boss in SDSN. Okay, he allowed me to come in. Okay, and we need to get private sector budget, right? So this DAR, he abolished international trade. Incidentally, the best person in the entire country, no holds barred, is Raul Montemayor. He went there. They made him disappear. They canceled him. Yeah. We just resurrected. They canceled the committee. They canceled budget on budget monitoring. No more private sectors monitoring. Nanakaw na. International trade, RCEP and stuff, right? He's the best. As a matter of fact, when they nominated him, I said, no, Raul is 10 times better than me. I don't have an inferiority complex to Raul. I don't have an inferiority complex to Raul. I am plain inferior to Raul. He's really good. And so, how many minutes, sir? I'm winding up. Jeez, I'm having fun, you know. Okay, so my wind-up statement is this. I complain of the government, but Jimmy Ongpin may move the private sector to fight and cause a revolution. We should not just sit and listen to speech like this and clap and smile. We must take action. Mr. Tuanyo, you must help me if I go to on TV or something to be credibility. But all of you must keep your eyes open, see what's happening. You see what's happening here. And whenever you can have a letter to the editor or something like that, right, you get involved, right? Because, and if you get a letter, give me a copy, I'll try and put it in the Inquirer, okay? Because I've been a columnist for 19 years. Every week on agriculture. So I think I have some connection. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ordonez, for that very passionate and feisty intervention. While our audience members, both on-site and online, prepare or think about how to frame the questions that they may have, perhaps we can start this off by asking Mr. Montemayor if there, for a few minutes to react or to respond to any of the points raised by the three reactors, should there be any he'd like to respond to.
Yeah, actually I know all of them, and when they were drawing up the list of reactors, I was telling the organizers, siguro you get somebody with a different point of view, no? Para mas maganda yung discussion, no? But we ended up with the three of them, and we basically agree on most things about food security, no? Maybe the only thing I can add now is that it's a complicated issue, no? Kasi right now when we read the papers, food prices are up. Parang simple lang, SRP, import, di ba? Parang ganun lang yung reaction ng government. But as you can see, it's a very complicated issue from the farmer to the trader to the processor, all the way to the consumer. Ang daming problema, no, that are not being attended to. No? And unless we start addressing those problems, have a comprehensive and integrated solution, we will have this crisis every year. Next year will be, I think, even worse. No? Umpisa pa lang ito ngayon taon, especially with depreciation of the peso, no? And then the continuing conflicts abroad, and then climate change, new variants of COVID. No? We might as well start addressing all these problems now. Hopefully, it will happen. No? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. May we just request our panelists, if you wish to address the audience, to just push the button on the microphone in front of you, and perhaps bring it closer to your to you so that it can be heard clearly. Okay, now I already have with me the first couple of questions that have been posed by our audience. The first one is from Father Michael Israel Ortega, and the question is, how do we promote agriculture to millennial youths today that it is ideally as profitable as any job or career like nursing and architecture? Perhaps any of the panelists would like to comment both on the premise of the question as well as any insight provided on this particular matter. It was already touched on a bit, I think, but if there's anything else you'd like to add at this point.
May I add? Yes, I'm a businessman, right? You can't talk about love of God and country when people are starving or they have a family to feed. The only way to bring them into agriculture is to make agriculture profitable. Now, right now, generally it's not. But there are pockets which are profitable. For example, planting cacao in between trees where 2 million out of 3 million have nothing, you can make 300,000, right? There's a big cacao conference coming in. So the important thing with the youth is that they've got to see where the profits are. You cannot just say love of country. And we see them. We see them. Our organization has a weekly forum where you look at topics like this. So for those listening, you Google MAP ABCD, correct, and then say YouTube. And 2 weeks after the forum, you'll see opportunities like cacao and dragon fruit, etc. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. And I also, talking about, more opportunities, there was mentioned earlier about how other fields, I mean, if you're, so long as we're creative about it, other fields like IT and the use of big data, etc., can actually also benefit agriculture. Okay. We have a question. Is there anybody who'd like to add to that?
Can I just add, no? There can also be, not necessarily, because like, for example, cooking, no? Cuisine, it's very important. I think maybe young people are attracted in trying to experiment, doing all kinds of fusion food and stuff like that, no? But if we can interest them to use their creative imagination to prepare new dishes or reinterpret, let's say, whatever's coming from their subculture, no? Yung Ilocano, yung Ilonggo, yung Kapampangan, and but that could be another area because that will also stimulate the local economy. It will help them be creative, and at the same time, it's also a promotion for local tourism in a way, no? We are able to say we have we can offer you a little more or at least some variety. So stuff like that, no? So in that area, no, where culinary maybe is the word, not only cuisine, but and then those who are maybe in engineering and stuff like that, which are a little more hard sciences, I would think we have so many things that can be done in renewable energy, no? We are in the tropics. Let's use it more, no? The sun is out there. Why is it taking so long, for example, to approve what do you call this, net metering? I don't know if any of you have the experience. It took me at least 9 months. In my home, I have some solar panels. We added, no? After not during construction but post construction, but it took us 9 months to get that one signature that you need to be able to do something about you. But I mean, that's funny. Should one signature, no? I mean, talk of red tape. This is worse than that. But so it's not only that, but maybe in use of water, water technology. What else can be done? No? We have a lot of water. We have a lot of sun, and why should we be dependent on oil only, di ba? So again, we should challenge our young people, maybe especially in the rural areas, because this is where it's abundant. It's more yung resource-based. So it's a really, because I think innovation has to be a cross-cutting thing that everybody should try to do to be able to move ahead. Thank you.
Karine?
Sige po. Yung pong ginagawa namin ay talagang hinikayat namin, tinorganize yung mga kabataang magsasaka sa ngayon. At nagawa na po kami ng national consultation, dinaos din namin sa Ateneo yun. Ang mga problema ng mga kabataan ngayon ay una, walang mga pulisiya na angkop para sa kanila. Halimbawa, sa lupa, kung ako ay may anak na 3, hindi pa legal age, pero kasama ko na sa pagsasaka, nagpa-family farming kami, pag tinanong ng gobyerno kanino ang lupa, sa akin. Diba? At kapag ang karamihan sa mga kabataan, kapag tumulong sa magulang sa kanayunan, tulong yun sa magulang. Hindi binibigyan ng kabahagi. Ano? At kung halimbawa mangungutang sila sa bangko, hindi naman sila of legal age para mangutang. Diba? Kaya nahirapan silang makapag-put up ng kanilang business mismo. Siyempre, mahalaga rin talaga na makapag-aral sila dun sa ng agronomiya. So, dahil yung mga kabataan natin magagaling eh. Pwede nga yung marketing through social media na lang. So, at tingin ko malaking maitutulong nito dahil yung experiment namin nung panahon ng pandemya, ang kinoconnect namin sa daraitan na nagsusupply ng ng pagkain sa De La Costa para tuwirang yung mga mamimi mula ron sa mga pamayanan ng dumagat ay dadalhin yung produkto doon sa De La Costa subdivision at doon mamimili. Mas mura yung pagkain. At may mga kabataan kaming kausap doon, mga young farmers doon. Tingin ko kung merong, halimbawa, ang pagmura naman talaga ng aming produkto, kunyari palay, inani namin ngayon, pagkatapos biglang inulan, wala kaming drying facility. So, mabubulok yun. At para hindi lang mabulok, mapipilitan kaming ibenta yun ng mura. At kahit kabataan ang naandyan at walang post-harvest facility, mabibenta nila yun kaysa mabulok. Di ba? Yun yung mga ganyan. Halimbawa, sa sibuyas, sa parting, sa Region 3, nung tanungin ko bakit nabubulokan sila ng sibuyas, sabi nila wala kaming storage. Tinanong ko ang DA mismo, nasan ba ang storage natin? Nasa pick-up ako, umupo ako doon eh. Nung tingnan namin, mayorya ng mga storage, more than half ng mga storage na nagawa, narito sa NCR at kukunti doon sa lugar. Kung ganyan, talagang hindi maingganyo. Pangalawa, siguro kung doon sa mga parplang area na walang elektrisidad para supply ng kuryente, kunyari doon sa storage facility, tama yung sinasabi ni Sir. Marami tayong option. Maaaring windmill, maaaring tubig, maaaring solar, na pwedeng ma-innovate ng mga kabataan yun. Tingin ko mas magaling sila kaysa amin. At tingin ko kapag ganyan yung nangyari, ma-encourage sila na magsaka kasi meron ng hydroponic ngayon na kahit nag-aaral sila sa kolehiyo, pwede magtayo ng may maliit na pasilidad na greenhouse para doon sila magsaka. Di ba? At tingin ko, yun sa mga kabataan. At ma-encourage natin sila. Pero siyempre, babalikan ko, basic talaga yung lupa para sa kanila at puhunan. Siyempre, yung value chain din mahalaga. Yung mga produkto namin, kung mamamaximize yung value chain, siyempre, maiinganyo silang magsaka. Salamat po.
Yeah. So how do we encourage young people to go into farming? No? May social aspects siya, no? Kasi parang may stigma yung being a farmer. No? You ask people, anong trabaho mo? Ako, banker ako. Ako, abogado. Economist. No? Tapos pag tinanong mong farmer, farmer lang po. No? Parang mababa ang tingin ng farmer sa kanyang sarili. No? And that kind of mindset, I think, filters down to their children. That they're not proud to be farmers now. And they don't see a lot of hope in farming. No? In fact, when a farmer family makes some money and is able to send children to school, ang ipapadala niya yung medyo may utak na anak niya. No? Yung medyo pinakamahinang utak sa farm ang bagsak niya. No? Hindi niya ipapaaral yun. No? So we're left with people who are in the farm, who are there because they have no other choice. No? That's why when Ernie says we have to make it profitable, yun dapat ang challenge. How do we make it exciting for young people to go into farming? Lose that mindset about farming being a very lowly job, no? And let them see a future in farming. No? Yun siguro yung challenge nila. It's not only, of course, it will help land, credit, etc., but also yung pag-iisip ng tao about farming.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your interventions. Let me just ask one more written question here before inviting our audience to ask their questions themselves. This is for Mr. Montemayor. What modifications or changes in the rice tariffication law are necessary to ensure food security in the country? And this is from Dean Tuanyo.
Yeah, well, first on rice, at the moment, we need to import because our local supply is not enough. No? So we have no quarrel with the RTL when it says allow imports to come in. The problem with that law is that it gave it basically deregulated the whole rice market so that there is no control over the volume of imports that's coming in. No? So the result is oversupply. and oversupply, especially during the harvest season. Because you cannot stop importers from bringing in rice under the law, especially if it's cheaper than local rice. No? For economists, there's nothing wrong with that. No? Because they will say, well, the farmers will have to match the price of the imports, and that will be good for society and consumers as a whole. No? Eh, ang problema, paano yung magsasaka ngayon? No? And how do we go through a transition from the time that we have a high cost of production, we are deficient in rice, to a situation where we have enough rice and we are competitive? It takes time to do that. No? And we are saying that the law must address the issue of that transition. It cannot be an abrupt opening up of the market. And it's not only rice, no? Chicken, meats, isda, vegetables. No? We will see if it's too abrupt, and we know that our local sector is not prepared to compete with imports. They will not survive. No? And we will become even more dependent on imports. No? So, a review of the strategy of the law. No? There are safeguards in that law. No? Like Ernie mentioned, that when the imports come in at too large a volume as to harm local producers, the government has the option to temporarily increase the tariff, no, to make the imports more expensive. Unfortunately, the previous administration, during which the first 3 years of RTL was implemented, refused to do that. No? They did it for cement, they did it for windows, glass windows, no? For vehicles. They did not want to do it for rice. For what reason, I cannot comprehend. No? So we have a situation now, imports come in very large volumes, cheaper than local rice. No? The farmers' prices go down. No? But the profit from cheaper imports is not passed on to consumers. So sabi namin yung rice tarification law, RTL, is a rice trader liberalization law. No? It's not for consumers and it's not for farmers.
Please go ahead, sir.
I just want to add, no, because given the law, as Raul said, you can increase the tariffs so that they can prepare and gradually go down. They do it for everything, including cement. I won the cement one, right? When I went for rice, which is easier to win, I made my suggestion, and I won it for cement. He made his suggestion. They did not have the decency to answer. We said, what is wrong with this? Just tell us where we're wrong. No response. Kaya I'm telling you, the government is really very bastos. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's really bad. I mean, they have the decency to say we're stupid here, stupid there. No talk. And the reason I'm mad is because they like the rich and they don't like the poor. Why the cement? They're multinationals. I was head of cement kasi in 6 countries. No? Mayaman ang kasama ko, wholesale, big time and all that. Okay, yes. Pagdating sa magsasaka, you know this lawyer, I mean, I just got to give you some passion here. No? The lawyer, I got him over the partner of Kiko Pangilinan. I got over the Marcelo Pangilinan, you know, the big guys. I got this little guy, A1. And I said, can I give you a cake? Because I know you don't take corruption. No, not even a cake. You give me free service for the farmers. I brought him to the secretary, right? He's going to give free service, $6 million for free. Twice. And I said, I'll never tell him. He's a goddamn hypocrite. I'm not going to sue him again. And you know, all we need, all right, is to say, okay, I don't like you. Pero at least, just give us an answer. Walang answer. It is disgusting. Jaime Ongpin fought martial law. Maybe you don't know what martial law is, right? Jaime Ongpin died. I saw him. I was his follower, right? Okay, he died. Now we have another thing. It's not as bad as martial law, but it can get there. And if Jaime Ongpin, we honor him today with his lecture. If he did it then, we must do it now. Because if we don't do it now, Jaime Ongpin will feel he died for nothing, right? And the Ateneo was at the forefront. They were even ahead of UP. Edgar Hobson, you've heard his name, right? He was ahead of UP and all the rest. To be honest with you, I was the president before him, right? And I was more radical than him, but I was never communist. And when I came back, he called me and said, we'll blindfold you, we'll bring you to Politburo, you gotta be a communist now, because the only way to fight Marcos is to be a communist. Sabi ko, forget it, no? forget it, you're unrealistic, you're more dictatorial than the dictator and all that, right? Okay. And what happened is that he died. If he saw what we happened today, he'd say, good heavens, I should have stuck with Ernie and just stayed there. Jimmy Ongpin, he was the best manager around, the highest paid and all that, right? And then he risked everything. And now that's our duty today. For me, kasi, I told you, no, that we here cannot get away with just saying, I like what I heard. We gotta move, right? So read and read and read and move and move and move. Because I'm telling you, kabastusan yan. Mr. Montemayor wrote a, how come they can't even answer? Are they stupid? They're not stupid. They're bad, B-A-D, bad. They're being paid by people. I know the bribery there and all that. And it is up to us now to fight that. If we just stay like that, we'll have another problem. Out of the honor of Jimmy Ongpin and people like Ed Hobson, we must actually take this lecture seriously. And when we can move. And I am volunteering to be helpful if you want to write a letter. I'll try and get it published, et cetera, right? Okay? Because we got to come together. And the last elections, well, never mind, because, you know, I'm supporting the administration because that's the one we have, right? You do what we can, but you call it critical collaboration for you of those who know that. We help where we can, we fight where we don't agree, but we help where we can, right? And right now, our job is to help. Where it's bad, you help by criticizing. Where it's good, you help, right? So I'm just saying that. No? I'm sorry, but I believe in the Ateneo spirit, right? Of man for others. I think we should do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From the floor, is there anyone who would like to pose a question? The lady in white, and then after her.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. I'm Iris Gonzalez from Philippine Star. It's really a very interesting discussion. I had to write down my questions. It's a lot, but I hope you can accommodate. So nobody mentioned smuggling. How big a problem is this? And the real estate development, like the lands are being converted into subdivisions, etc. And can I get your thoughts on hybrid rice? Like people are offering, or the companies are offering that. Is it really a solution? That's my first question. Number two, number two, what do you think of the president as a DA secretary? Should he not appoint an agri-secretary, actually? And then, that's my second question. And then the third, somebody mentioned about the use of data, big data. How else can we use data? It's a very interesting point. I just wanted to ask how the telcos or the internet companies can help in the area of food security. Those are my questions. Thank you.
You must have studied in Ateneo, because those were not 3 questions.
Yes, sir. MA.
Would like to go first?
Siguro, tig-isa tayong question para hindi mahaba. so I'll deal with the issue of smuggling. No? Siyempre, very hard to quantify because it's smuggled. No? It's hidden. But we were comparing data from international monitoring agencies, for example, of how much rice left Vietnam for the Philippines and how much rice was recorded by BOC, Bureau of Customs, to have arrived in the Philippines. In 2020, there was a discrepancy of 300,000 tons. That's how many kilos? 300 million kilos of rice, no? That left Vietnam for the Philippines, but were not recorded in the Philippines. No? Very hard to prove kasi nga tago yun eh. No? What we have documented is the issue of undervaluation and misdeclaration. No? Very interesting, in 2020, about 85% of the rice that left Vietnam was recorded in their ports as 5% broken. So medyo magandang klaseng bigas. Konti lang ang durog. No? What BOC recorded in the same year was only 15% were 5% broken. The rest were 25 or higher broken. No? So what happens is they imported good rice, they exported good rice to us, but BOC recorded it as lower grade rice. Why? Because you can declare that at a lower value. No? And when you declare it at a lower value, your tariff will be lower also because we have a ad valorem type of taxation in the ports. No? Alam nyo yung estimate namin since RTL was enacted, so 3.5 years, the value of uncollected tariffs because of undervaluation and misdeclaration is about 14 billion pesos already. No? And we have had dialogues with BOC, nagkaroon ng Senate hearing and everything. Nothing happened. No? They're just dribbling the ball, no? Saying they will do this, do that, etc. So it's a very big racket. No? Not only in rice, mas grabe pa yung meats. Kasi yung rice, at least bigas yan, makikita mo bigas. No? But in meats, they bring in the first-class cuts of meat and declare it as offals. No? Ibig sabihin mga laman loob, mga ganyan. No? You can just imagine how much is being lost by the government in terms of tariff. And under the law, those tariffs are supposed to be given back to the farmers. No? At least yung in excess of 10 billion a year, whatever is collected over 10 billion goes back to the farmers. So it's not only the government losing money, but also the farmers. No? And this is some issue that I don't know if this administration will be any better. No? Because it's still going on and it's getting worse.
All right. Mr. Ordonez, which question would you like to tackle?
The same question, because this I know, you can measure smuggling. And I was with 2 task forces reporting to the President where we cut smuggling by 31% and by 25%. Both were abolished because we caught the best friend of such and such, no? And the big fish were caught and they canceled it. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because if you just restored that committee, it's called an oversight committee, with 4 departments, 1 public, 1 private sector, reporting to the President of the Philippines, meeting customs every month, right? And he's scared because there are 4 departments. We got results, but they abolished them twice. That's on the floor right now. As a matter of fact, it's in my column tomorrow, Inquirer, you read it. It's a different paper from Iris, but it's not so bad. It's not a bad paper, no? But I'm telling you this, I'm telling you this. That is just political will. You know why? Customs right now, the worst is happened just last week, okay? I know how to do it because there have been 4 cases against me in court by the so-called smugglers, academic harassment. I know this very well, no? And we can measure it. How do you measure it? As Raul said, what they report, they give here is say 100. Then you report 60, 40 has disappeared. That's because of undervaluation, misclassification, or outright smuggling, right? You can measure. That's what I said. We succeeded 31% and 25%, right? Okay? And actually, it's in Bongbong right now, right? That request, right? And the worst thing is this. For the first time, 1 month ago, my farmers, I'm really into fighting smuggling. They've stopped the fight because they're threatened with death. I mean, they're all threatened with death, but this time all of them have stopped, right? Yeah, and it never happened. I've been fighting. They've stopped the fight. And it's so easy to fight them. I know how to do it. Carrots in the Visoria, you know, it's not allowed. You just get it, right? Simple, the word goes out, etc. That's what happens, right? Okay? And now they're so scared, they've stopped. It never happened before. So the question is it worse now than Marcos' time or Duterte or whatever? Is it worse? Well, in that aspect, it is worse. It is worse. I want to talk to the Customs Commissioner. You know what he said? I have orders from higher up. I cannot talk to you. You've got the permission from the Secretary of Agriculture, namely Bongbong, right? Okay? How is that? I'm head, of course, of the Anti-Smuggling Committee. I'm talking as a regular. Cannot. So I go to the, you know, he said, cannot. Have we gone mad? What do you mean? I'm just a simple guy, wants to talk, I cannot. Can you see, I'm warning you that these things are getting bad, right? Okay? And you don't see it, but it's creeping very slowly. And our investors are getting scared. We need investments to get jobs. If they're getting scared, they're going to other, do you know that? They're going to other countries. They're investing in other countries. They're really scared of coming here, right? Now, of course, you have people like, nice guys like Balisacan and company, right? But we need people such as you in this room to get into letters and stuff like that so they know there is this thing, okay? And if it is smuggling, I know it. I was with that committee, proposed to the president, and it was to Gloria and then to Noynoy. Kay Gloria, siya mismo nag-cancel. Meron kaming nahuli. Naggalit ako, sabi ko, sino? Pare, Malacanang yan. Sino hinuli? Ay, naku, can't answer. Second one, si Pinoy ba? Pinoy nag-gawa nito. Sino nag-cancel? Si Paildon, because Pinoy was backing us. 32% increase, right? I mean, pagdating ni Paildon, screw you. I beg your pardon, screw me. We didn't say that, you said something worse, but never mind. No, I'm just saying that this is really a slap on our faces. We're a democracy, right? You look at Jaime Ongpin, right? Against all odds, worse, he fought. We must do the same, right? I mean, can you believe it? I mean, actually, I was afraid to write it down. But Miss Iris, I follow you all the time. You're a great newspaper and all that. So I thank you sometimes. You publish our stuff. But I'm just saying that I was scared. Wala na. Jaime Ongpin threw everything. His wife knows that. He threw everything and fought, right? And if we don't act, we might face a bigger problem. It's time we act, right? Okay. So if you Google Inquirer, I saw it's going to be published tomorrow, right? It talks about what they did to these poor farmers, These were my first allies at the start. They came back. They're Alianza Agricultura. And now they're so scared. They're afraid to even talk to me. You know that? They're afraid. I get someone else. They're afraid. They're really scared because they're really threatened with death. They kill this lapid guy, Then the middleman, he dies, Page 1. Why does he die? Is the connect. Why does he die? No, we got to move, and win Makati. I mean, in Makati now, we just got to do the Jaime Ongpin thing. Jaime Ongpin was a Makati guy, but he fought for the country. So.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else want to talk about some of the other points that were raised? Real estate development, hybrid rice, your thoughts on the president continuing to be the Secretary of Agriculture?
Ako po sa hybrid rice, maganda sana yung hybrid rice, kaya lang dinevelop siya bilang kailangan mas maraming tubig, mas maraming pataba, at mas kinakailangan ng pestisidyo. Kasi pag binigyan mo siya ng maraming pataba, lalambot yung katawan niya Sasalakayin siya ng peste. Pag sinalakay siya ng peste, gagamit ka na naman ng pestisidyo. Di ba? Ganun yung nangyayari. Sa ngayon, ang daming kuhol well, mataas ang anin yan kung tutuusin. Kaya lamang, yung presyo naman mataas yung gagastusin mo sa inputs. Pero pag binenta mo naman, halos kaparehas din naman ng natural na para, yung mga natural na palay na ginagamit namin. Paano naman kami kikita roon kung mas mataas yung inputs kaysa roon sa benta namin? Sa ngayon, ngayon ang palay halos sa bawat hektarya, kada kilo umaabot na ng mahigit 13 hanggang 14 pesos kada kilo ang gastos namin. Tapos bibilihin sa amin sa Quezon, ang bili ngayon ay 12-13. Di lugi na kami. Kaya iba naming mga magsasaka, hindi na lang nagtatanim. Lalo na may mga anak na magaling magkwenta, tatay, lugi talaga tayo. Hindi na nagtatanim. Yun din yung dahilan kung bakit nagkakaroon tayo nung mga nakaraang panahon, parang 7% of the total consumption natin ay yun ang kulang, kaya yun ang ini-import natin. Sabi naman si Raul, bukod dun sa legal import, meron pang smuggle. So, ibig sabihin talagang dadagsayan. At sa ganitong kalagayan, ang pinapayaman natin ay yung mga magsasaka na ibang bansa, hindi yung magsasaka rito sa lokal. At yun ang naging dahilan ng ugat ng kahirapan, kaya maraming porpis sa kanayunan. yung kasi, pag hybrid, yun nga, na-develop siya Saka, ang isa pa, hindi bawat palay ay angkop sa isang lugar. Dapat meron silang angkop na climatic condition, may adaptability trial dapat na ginagawa. Kahit sa RCEP, bigla kang bibigyan supply ng binhi, isang klase lang. Ay kung hindi naman ito bagay sa iyong lupa, so paano? Yun po yung problema.
Salamat. Yes po.
Let me look at this issue of data, and actually what we should look at is smart agriculture. No? I just want to introduce that phrase here, because if we look at other countries, they're already saying agriculture 4.0. Tayo yata wala pa tayo sa 2.0 eh. Baka 1.5 or something. No? So but we can see that by even like simple use of drones, no, you are able to be able to capture a larger set of data by using video, by using photos, and you're able to use it for better planning. No? That's one. Another use of smart data is also if you have irrigation and other let's say things that have to be done on the land or in the planting process, it is better to be more precise because it avoids also wastage. No? And then and of course what we already said, no, the obvious for marketing. No? It is very, if we have some kind of a data set that farmers can consult, at least alam natin the decision kasi, the level of autonomy has to be brought to the lowest level. Dapat ang magsasakang nagde-decide kung anong itatanim nila. No? Hindi pwede yung dinidiktahan lang sila o kailangan itanim nila ito dahil sinabi ng gobyerno yan ang kailangan itanim. Hindi, no? Kailangan dapat malaya ang mga magsasaka silang pumili. Tama siya yung sa hybrid rice, no? If it's gonna be cheaper for me to plant natural or organic rice, I'll do that. No? Why should I be forced to take in something that Erie developed, but it will cost me an arm and a leg to be able to maintain that? No? Especially with the rising cost of fertilizer. Now, one bag of fertilizer is already over 1,000 pesos. 2,000 na raw. You see? So, you know, paano mo babawiin yan? Ano? Yung cost pa lang ng fertilizer. Kung minsan, meron pang herbicide or whatever has to be. Ano? So, it's really malulugi talaga yung farmer. So now, if the farmer knows the prices using data or data sets that are available, then he can say, I'm not going to plant rice now. Baka dapat gulay ang itatanim ko ngayon or whatever can be a little bit more profitable. No? Or maybe I should just plant organic rice because mababa ang cost of input ko, healthy yan, at I should be able to get a decent return. So yung mga consideration ngayon, at least is that we respect the level of autonomy of the farmer. Yun lang naman ang mahalaga doon. And data will be able to help that. No? Role of telcos, well, it's up to them, really, because they can facilitate this or make it difficult, di ba? Because pwede naman nila, malaki ang mga ginagasta nila for CSR or for advertising and promotions. No? Why don't they also put part of that budget para matulungan yung mga magsasaka? Of course, we know already that farmers are not important, so why should they invest in those kinds of activities? So well, it's really a tragedy of the commons, pero we just have to keep on push back, no? I think that's our role as civil society, as enlightened individuals, and we can see that we can always see pockets where we can push the common good, no? We can broaden the social space, the democratic space, and see what we can do, no? For like this, and other similar events, no? More dialogue with the base sectors is also needed, so that the voices are heard. It's not enough, It's not enough, no? Parang after the election campaign, parang it just kind of everything died down. Sige, people are resting, they're getting their act together, that's fair, but I think there should be another pushback, or at least to start looking forward, no? Anyway,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you very much.
I'm told that we've practically run out of time, but I'd like to keep my word and call on the lady who raised her hand earlier.
I'm Gemma Cruz Araneta. Isa po akong manunulat ng Manila Bulletin. Ang tanong ko po ay para kay Karen Necerillas. Marami na po tayong naging presidente at kalihim ng agrikultura. Sa palagay ninyo, sino po ang nakatulong sa sektor ng agrikultura at sino naman ang walang nagawa? So, wag na nating isali si Emilio Aguinaldo dahil medyo mahirap yung mga panahon noon. Magsimula po tayo kay Manuel Quezon.
Ako mukhang hindi pa po ako buhay nung panahon ni Manuel Quezon. Medyo nahirapan po ako sumagot doon kasi hindi naman po ako masyadong well-versed sa mga naging sekretary. Ano po. Pero yung dinadanas po ngayon, gusto kong sagutin na yung dinadanas ngayon ng mga magsasaka ay bahagi ng Green Revolution ni Marcos nung araw. Dahil sa doon nauso yung chemical farming at saka ay mga panibagong binhi. Kaya yung mga binhi natin matatatag, noong araw, wala na kami ngayon. Naipon na yun sa iri. At kung kinakailangan namin kumuha ng matatag na binhi na yun, ay kinakailangan namin sumulat sa iri para kumuha ng variety na yun. Anong meron ngayon sa agriculture ngayon? Ang meron ngayon, yung mga dinevelop na binhi. At ang binhi ngayon ay wala na sa magsasaka. Nasa mga multinational corporation. Ang mga research na ginawa ng DA tungkol sa mga binhi ay pinupondohan ng mga multinational company na siyang nagtatamasa ng ani namin ngayon. Kaya nung una, maraming magsasaka po. Pero ngayon, hindi na po sila magsasaka. Magsasako na lang po sila dahil sako na lang natitira sa kanila. Pagkatapos na bawasin yung utang, yung gasto sa pestisidyo, sa fertilizer, at saka sa herbicide. Yun yung tanungin niyo po yung mga taga-Nueva Ecija ng mga kaibigan kong magsasaka. Kami po sa Quezon, hindi kami masyado na-epektuhan eh. Pero sa tingin ko po, dahil nauso itong chemical farming nung panahon ng Green Revolution, kasi yung pataba po, meron yung silicate di ba? Na component. Yun yung nagpapatigas dun sa bawat butil ng pataba. Pag sinabog mo namin yun sa lupa, siyempre parang semento yun, titigas yung lupa namin. At mainit po yun, ha? Mainit yun. Therefore, yung mga microbes dun sa lupa, na natural na gumagawa ng taba ng lupa, namatay po yun. Pangalawa, pag gumamit po kami ng pesticides, kasi hindi naman kami ganun ka-wilburst nung araw kahit ang tatay ko. Kahit merong nakasulat sa bote yan, hindi naman nakasulat sa Tagalog English naman. Kaya nahirapang intindihan. Kaya ginamit yan. Kaya makita mo yung mga magsasaka ngayon, may sakit sa kung ano-anong internal na sakit dahil yun doon sa residue ng chemical. Hindi ko masasagot kung sinong mahusay Kasi sa totoo lang, masasabi lang naming mahusay kung hindi tayo naghihirap ngayon sa pagkain. Halimbawa, ngayong panahong ito, dumadaing tayo ng kahirapan sa pagkain, pero hindi naman nakukonsulta ng maayos yung mga magsasaka. Tapos yung Department of Agriculture, na-devolve pa sa local government. Ano po? Pagdating ng pondo ron sa Secretary ng Agriculture, ililipat niya yung pondo sa mga regional offices. Mula sa regional offices, ipapasa na po yun sa mga governor. Napupoliticize yung pondo. Kaya minsan, yung farm to market road, kung saan napupunta. Ano po? At kung yung governor mo ay hindi bias sa agriculture, may problema ka doon. Ano po? At kukunti yatang sekretary na talagang nag-aral ng agronomy. Yun yung isang puna ko. Kaya tingnan natin, yung mga sekretary natin, iilan dyan ang nag-aral ng agronomy. Yung undersecretary baka meron. Ano po? Yun yung aking patunay lang na mukhang may problema tayo sa agrikultura. Halimbawa ngayon, konkreto. Magbibigay ka ng mga farm tractor, dahilig yung lupa. Ang laki ng traktora mo, hindi makakaakyat yun doon kasi hindi design doon. Kaya nga ang design ng PhilMec ngayon, 50 hectares dapat ang kakayanin ng isang makina para lang ma-break even mo yung gastos. At may karanasan kami, yung mga kooperatiba namin, binigyan ng bayuhan ng palay, yung gilingan ng palay, ang laki naman. So yung lugar nila ay kinakailangan pang pumunta sa ibang lugar para makapag-kolekta ng palay para gilingin doon sa kanilang gilingan para hindi sila malugi sa operasyon. Ang sa akin, sana naman nakukonsulta ng maayos yung mga magsasaka sa level na yan. At tinatanong ano bang gusto namin. At kung tayo nakikipag-usap doon sa negosasyon sa ibang bansa, mahalagang kinukonsulta yung mga samahang magsasaka. Meron naman kaming Magna Carta of Small Farmers eh. Ngayon nagsusulong nga kami ng Magna Carta of Young Farmers. O, baka doon tingnan yun. Ano ba talaga ang kailangan? Diba? Halimbawa ako, magsasaka po ako sa palay at nyug. Yung ating nyug, 80% ng crude ng langis niyan, ine-export natin. 20% lang ginagamit dito. Samantalang kakaiba sa Indonesia, 80% ginagamit nila sa lokal at 20% na i-export nila. Ang dahilan, ginagamit nilang blend sa kanilang fuel. Ngayon tumataas ang diesel. Bakit hindi natin gamitin yun? Anong dahilan? Baka meron sa pulisiya ang problema. Baka ganun lang po, baka mapahaba ako. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much. We've really ran out of time.
Madam Chair, just want to say this now. They used to do that. They stopped it also. They used to consult the farmers. Say, is this equipment okay? They canceled that too. I just want to let you know that. We are not doing something new. We did it before. They stopped it. That's why I'm saying we gotta do something. They used to do it. We used to do it. We used to go there. Tama ba ito? Ngayon, wala na. We're not allowed to talk to them.
Apparently the government officials. Okay, I'm really sorry. I've been told I need to wrap it up. Just
Pwede po last pahabol. last 5 minutes. Hi,
eh,
sir.
we please keep it shorter.
Yes. Dean Tuanyo. Hello po. Joy Ortega po. From board member from 1st District of La Union. Hello po. Joyful morning to everyone. Question lang po. Why are our farmers and fisher folks who are our food suppliers still poor up to this day?
In a few words, anyone wants to answer that? 1 hour is apparently not enough, ma'am.
Ang dami ko po kasi, I'm not an expert. I have so many observations. Is it the middleman? Is it the mahalang abono? Is it climate change? Is it the kids who don't want to be involved in farming? Is it madaming seminars and trainings pero wala namang monitoring at update after? Is it because we lack protection of the and rehabilitation of the watersheds? Is it because we lack proof of concept? Wala po tayong model to prove that we can have food security in our country. Is it because we have not shifted to regenerative agriculture, or we have not pushed it, we're not aggressive enough to check on the health of the soil? Is it because we don't have post-harvest facilities? Or is it really just because we lack political will up to this day? If we do not vote for the right leaders and it's not their priority, then we will never have a significant change in our country.
The last word,
Sige,
Mr.
parang
Montemayor?
last word na rin. Yeah, I think it's all of it, ma'am. It's a,
Yun nga po, sir, ang
and
bottom
that's
line.
what I was trying
Yes.
to point out, that it's not a simple matter or issue. Komplikado rin siya, no? And what has happened with agriculture is, over the years, napabayaan siya, nagpatong-patong yung mga problema, and you cannot solve it in one go, no? And sometimes you try to address a certain problem, but you neglect to address other problems. Hindi ka uusad. You might even go backwards if you do not do that sort of a coordinated approach to agriculture.
So bottom line pa rin, sir, if the voters won't change, our leaders won't change.
Isa yun.
Yes.
Yes, political system, it's crept into the social fabric, the political system, the economic way of thinking. No? Mahirap yung problema actually, no? But kami sa farmer side, we have nowhere else to run. No? We have to accept those problems and continue to lobby the government to address it consistently. No?
Yes, sir.
And explain to them yung situation.
Yes, sir. We just have to have the right leaders to prioritize. the projects or the changes that we really
Yes.
want. So thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone, both our panelists and our audience. It has been a very interesting morning, and there are more questions than we have time to actually answer. So I have a commitment here from the university. Anyone on-site and online who have more questions to ask, please send or email your questions to the Secretariat at development@ateneo.edu, and they commit to send these questions to the panel and get back to the original senders. Okay, as I said, this is really all the time we have for today. At this point, may we invite Mrs. Isabel Maribel I. Ongpin to close the program with her remarks.
Well, I wish to thank this wonderful speaker and the reactors for coming here today and enlightening us what food security really needs. Actually, as Mr. Ordonez said, we have to fight. One of the first fights is to make government listen. You know, look at the audience here. I don't know if there's anybody from the Department of Agriculture, and they were invited. Domingo Panganiban said he was coming, but suddenly now he had to go somewhere else. This is what's happening all the time. They are not listening. They are not listening. Farmers are the backbone of any country. Any country. It can be rich, it can be poor, but it's the farmers who are, you know, making it exist in a healthy way. Why are we ignoring this? Well, but first I also have to thank Father Yap for coming here. I mean, his time is very important. I also need to tell you that he was one of the first speakers of our Ongpin lecture, and he talked about climate change. And he told us, and I didn't quite believe him, that the typhoons will become worse, that there were going to be more droughts, that the heat will be horrible. Unfortunately, it all came true. That's because he had data. So we need the data. You know, get it from the farmers and apply it, okay? And really, government is always deaf. I'm sorry to tell you, right now, we're fighting the BSP for the polymer currency. Mr. Raul Montemayor's relative, Leonardo, came to the hearing last Monday. I was there too. And that's one thing. The other thing is the smuggling, not listening, you know, and the justice system. There's plenty to do. But the first thing is government has to listen. They get into trouble because they don't listen. That polymer currency, they didn't consult anybody. Okay? The banks are not giving the agriculture loans that are necessary, and nobody's sanctioning them. They just pay the what they call the penalty, because of course they can afford it. They're making so much money. And then our wonderful land bank, useless. I'm sorry to say. I just wrote a column about it, and it was only too true that the president had to apologize, the president of Land Bank. I mean, they're just not listening, okay? So let's all of us take up the cause of farmers to have them be listened to, okay? If all of us do that, our columnists here, you other farmers, make a racket, even in local government, you know, make a racket, and they will have to listen eventually. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ongpin. We would like to take this moment to present tokens of appreciation to today's speakers. So if you could stay for that, please. So we have a few more tokens for our speakers. So thank you very much for the tokens of appreciation. Before we formally conclude our event, we would like to thank the following offices and units: Ateneo School of Government, Ateneo Professional Schools, University, University Marketing and Communications Office, or UMCO, the Information Technology Resource Management Office, Arete Technical Team, headed by D. Cortesano, Office of University Development and Alumni Affairs, Ateneo Law School, the Central Facilities Management Office of the Ateneo Professional Schools, as well as the Campus Safety and Mobility Office of the APS. So once again, thank you for your very enthusiastic participation and very passionate views. And for those who weren't able to join us, the recording of the lecture may actually be accessed later at the Ateneo YouTube channel. So we hope to see you again next year for the next Jaime V. Ongpin annual memorial lecture. And for our on-site guests, we have some light refreshments prepared. We'd like to, of course, invite you to partake of this with us. Have a good morning.